Merry meet, guys. Welcome back to Witches of the Moon. I am your Wednesday host, Houston, and this week's topic is Necromancy. Natalie and Jen did a fantastic video. Did fantastic videos before me. If you haven't seen them, I do recommend going to go back and watch their takes. I just have a few things to add, and I want to apologize again for the bounce. But a few things to add, a couple books, and some tips. For me, necromancy, breaking the word down, necro meaning dead, mancy meaning divination, to call upon the spirits of the dead, to gain information. I don't do that on a formal aspect. I don't have a huge ceremony or ritual to call on the dead, at least at the moment. When I perform necromancy or a type of necromancy, I'm usually calling on my ancestors, calling on the people I knew in life or the people from my family line to help me gain insight. And I don't or haven't experimented with bringing them into full manifestation or a full rite of evocation or things like that, where you get the, I think, triangle of art and you're able to potentially make the spirit manifest within the triangle. That's just one of the, from the books Summoning Spirits by Konstantinos. It's a fantastic book. I read it online first. I haven't. This is an ebook, and I read it all the way through online first before I got the physical copy. I'm going back through now and highlighting stuff that I liked because I can't do that on my laptop. But that's a fantastic book, Summoning Spirits. It doesn't really just talk about summoning the dead. It talks about summoning the spirits of the Goetia, spirits of the Keys of Solomon, angels, other entities and beings, deities, things like that. Now, when you do try it out, I'm not going to say you shouldn't try, because I think you should try if you feel comfortable doing it. I want to say, make sure you're protected. Make sure you know how to cleanse. Make sure you know how to protect yourself magically. And make sure you do everything with respect. If you disrespect the spirit of the dead or of any entity in general, it can literally turn your world upside down. So I wanted to send out that warning. If you try, after watching these videos, if you've been interested in necromancy, I have a few more books, and one that I couldn't find. A few more books that I want to recommend, and then I want to recommend some safety practices too. So, with that being said, another book that I got halfway through and I felt the author was, like, the way he wrote it just made him seem so creepy. But it's a good book. It has good information. It's just how he wrote it made it really, really creepy. And I don't mean creepy as in Halloween creepy. I mean like creeper creepy. Like a creeper. But it's another book on magical evocation. It's The Spirit Conjuring for Witches by Frater Barbarous. Like I said, I got 2/3 of the way through, and I couldn't take his writing much anymore. The way he explains calling on spirit is to, and you know how I guys feel about this, make a shrine to a deity and use them as their protective godhead, and to basically become one with deity, and use that to summon, to bring forth the deity into your magical practice and other spirits. You would have the Godhead that would protect you. But I'm not a big fan of, I'm not a big proponent of worshiping deity. Like, I have statues and stuff, but they're not for worship. They're because they look really cool and they represent the deities that I worked with. But that was his take on it. I have this book. There's another one too, but it's not really on necromancy per se. It's Walking the Twilight Path, a Gothic Book of the Dead by Michelle Belanger. She's another one of my favorite authors. I have a lot of books by her, actually. I have her Psychic Vampire Codex. I have her Dictionary of Demons, which is actually really cool and really useful. Just for information-wise, if you're interested in demonology, it's a really good book. And I know there are other books out there that are more in-depth. But this isn't talking about spirits per se. This is more along the lines of aligning yourself with the energies of death. And that could be a good starter point if that's what you want to do. Like, if your practice has only been about a certain aspect and you kind of want to touch on, and you kind of want to experience necromancy, you can experience the energies kind of that if you're interested. And I think it goes into calling on the spirits. And there's another book, which I have not read. It's on my book list to read, but I thought it'd be perfect to share. It's Raising Hell, A Concise History of Black Arts and Those Who Dared to Practice Them by Robert Masello. I got this from a really good friend of mine. Her mom was getting rid of books around Christmas, and it has a whole chapter in here on raising the dead. Necromancy. It talks about Friar Bacon. Not Friar Bacon. I don't know why I said that. Yeah, it was Friar Bacon. Roger Bacon, who wrote The Discovery of Miracle of Arts, Nature, and Magic, written in the 13th century. It goes into more talking about him. The one aspect that I thought was really cool was a tool that is kind of seen as a necromancer's tool. Sorry, there's music playing outside. It's super late. The Bell of Gerardius, which was a bell made by a French sorcerer. This is a picture of it. That if I'm trying to find out. So with that, the bell, what he did was he wrapped it up in green taffeta, and the spirits that he wanted to raise, he buried the bell in their graves for a certain amount of days and changed it to different grave sites. And when the time came that he wanted to raise the dead, he would get on his ceremonial garb and he would ring the bell, and the dead, or the bodies of the spirits of the people whose graves the bell were buried in, would rise and do his bidding. That's a thing throughout history. That's a historical note. I don't know why I can't use my words. Another book that I could not find in my massive bookshelf was The Witch's Book of the Dead by Christian Day, the warlock of Salem, Massachusetts. It is a very interesting read. It's very precise and very practical. So if you're interested in necromancy, I do recommend that book for the practicality of it. It's not it's extremely practical, like extremely practical. There are certain things that he talks about that I wouldn't do, but that doesn't mean you guys might not do it. Like for me, I would not I don't think I would ever obtain a human skull, like a live one. That's how he does a lot of his stuff. Not a live one, but one from a living person. Maybe a animal skull. I can see that, but I don't know about a human skull. Okay, so beside the rambling of books, those are just my recommendations. There's probably a ton more. I don't know why. I think it's it being late at night and having pain going down my back. I can't speak. Some practices I recommend that everyone who practices necromancy understands and can do. First and foremost is cleansing. Being able to cleanse any way possible, to get any funk out, to get anything out before and after you summon the spirit of whoever. It doesn't matter if it's your ancestor, or if you're doing it through a ritual, like you're bringing them through your cards, or through a spirit board, or through a crystal ball, or through evocation and having them manifest in a mirror or a incense smoke. It doesn't matter if it's your ancestors or a spirit through history, like a famous sorcerer or a famous witch throughout history, through history. Cleanse before and cleanse after. No one's going to get offended, because in my mind, I think your ancestors would understand that you don't want, they may be the ones coming through, but there could be something else, lower vibration, that comes through with them that you may not notice to begin with. And then as time goes on, it builds strength from negative emotions that it causes, and you have a haunting on your hands, or something much worse. Also, before you, don't ever impromptu a summoning, a spirit summoning, evocation. That's one thing I don't impromptu. I have everything written down, so I don't mess up, so I get the spirit's name right, so I know who I'm calling. So I set my boundaries, so I set my wards, so I don't forget anything. That's why I do it. I don't ever impromptu that. If you feel comfortable doing that, that is your practice. I can't tell you what you can and cannot do. I recommend you don't do it. Just a recommendation. Again, knowing how to protect yourself with casting of a circle or creating sacred space, either from wearing protective jewelry or knowing if you're working with the spirits of the dead that are unruly for particular reasons, knowing angelic powers to put them, to bind them, or to compulse them into doing what you ask them to do. What else? Also, if you're using a tool, make sure you know how to use the tool. We get a lot of people, I have heard a lot of people who have used, and we've all read this online, have used a spirit board without knowing how to do it, and thought it was a fun game, and wreaked havoc on their lives. Using a spirit board is a viable form of necromancy, because you are calling on a spirit. If you can focus it on the spirit of the dead, then it's necromancy. Some people even think that calling your spirit guides or the angels or demons or whatever other spirit is also necromancy, and I don't agree with that. I think necromancy is just for the spirits of who have lived and who are no longer here. I don't think calling on the spirit of an angel who has never been in human form can be called necromancy, even if you are getting information from him. I think that is just a form of spirit divination. Even though that's another way to break down the word necromancy, is divining through spirits. So in a sense, it could be that could be considered necromancy. In my mind, it's two different things, but I don't have a word for it. So this is something to think about. What other practices? I gave you 3. Can't really think of anything else. Before I ramble on, if there are any questions, comments, or concerns, or if I didn't make any damn sense in this video, comment down below. And actually, no, before I do that, I want to do an example and a personal story of a necromancy. It wasn't an attempt, but it came through anyway. You know, there are all, at times there are, at least I go through times of where my moods drop drastically. And hopefully that's going to change soon. I'm starting a new medication for my stomach, which is a big deal in my depression. But my mood used to change and drop drastically. It still kind of does. But when I would do that, I would inadvertently, I don't know if it was me doing it or my grandmother just coming through. But when my mood would hit, and I would hit almost rock bottom, where I would just want to give up, I would have a song start playing in my head. And, you know, I would see her, I would see her favorite flowers in my mind's eye, and it would just cheer me back up. It would, of course, make me cry a little bit because, you know, that's my grandmother. And, that's really the only, you know, time that I can think of that it was inadvertent. At that time, I don't ever mean to call them. And I don't know if that's considered a form of necromancy, because usually you're definitely calling on someone. So, that's the story I wanted to share. Hope you guys have a great 4th of July. Be careful, be safe, and all that jazz. Have any questions, comments, or concerns, leave them down below for me in the comment section. I'll be more than happy to read up on them. You guys have a great rest of your week. Many blessings.